Hi, my name is Suzanne Barbour. I'm a professor of biochemistry and molecular biology in the VCU School of Medicine, and I'm also the director for research training in the VCU Center on Health Disparities.
Hi, I'm Joyce Lloyd. I'm a professor in the Department of Human and Molecular Genetics here at VCU, and I am working with Suzanne on a number of the research training programs in the Center on Health Disparities.
And this morning we'd like to tell you a little bit about some of our research training programs, starting with the rationale and justification for developing them. As you're probably aware, there's a big issue in the United States right now in terms of the numbers of individuals who are pursuing degrees in what we call the STEM disciplines. That stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And the long and the short of this is that in China last year, 1 in 2 undergraduate students were pursuing degrees in disciplines that lead to careers in STEM. However, in the United States, the percentage is less than 20%. It's less than 1 in 5. And at this rate, considering that the baby boom generation is beginning to retire, we will not be able to replenish our workforce in STEM disciplines, particularly in biomedical research. And so one of our goals is clearly to address this deficiency. Now, when you take into consideration some of the changes in the demographics of our country, it becomes clear why we're having such problems in replenishing the STEM workforce. I'll use African Americans as an example. At present, African Americans are about 13% of the U.S. population, and the numbers of African Americans who go to college are representative of the numbers of African Americans in the population. However, as you move from college to graduate school and eventually out to the PhD, the numbers of African Americans who actually pursue PhD degrees in the STEM disciplines is very, very small. And when you consider that the numbers for Latinos are even worse than they are for African Americans, and the fact that Latinos together with African Americans are close to 1/3 of the U.S. population, it becomes clear that we have a brain drain. And this is clearly an issue that leads to the decline in the strength of the workforce in biomedical sciences. The bottom line is that the issue of recruiting minorities into the STEM disciplines is no longer a minority issue. It's an American issue and an important workforce issue that needs to be addressed. So, in other words, we've arrived at what we call a Sputnik moment, a time when we need to do something to address a deficiency. So in the VCU Center on Health Disparities, we've come up with a number of ways to address those deficiencies. This is a screenshot of our website, which lists some of the programs we've developed over the last few years.
So the programs sort of span the lifetime of a student, and they actually begin with a number of undergraduate research programs and then work up to post-baccalaureate research programs, graduate research training programs, and finally a training program for postdoctoral fellows where we have an interesting partnership with a number of local institutions. So the undergraduate training programs, Suzanne has really been the one who got that started here. And we have the short-term research experiences for underrepresented persons, Step Up, the Health Education Research Opportunities Program, HERO, Virginia. Then we also have a couple of programs that are specific to VCU students. So the first 2 programs, we take students from outside of VCU and probably mostly outside of VCU. The 2 programs that particularly benefit VCU students are the VCU-MARC program, Minority Access to Research Careers, and VCU Initiative for Maximizing Student Diversity. That's VCU-IMSD. That program actually works for both undergraduates and PhD students. And I think Suzanne will tell you a little bit more about all of the undergraduate programs, and it's really important to capture this population at the undergraduate years in order to really get them on the track towards a research career. And then I'll talk a little bit more as we go along about the post-bac program, VCU-PREP, and also the VCU-IRACDA program, which is our program for postdoctoral fellows. So VCU is really in a unique position to provide biomedical research training. We have, in this combination of programs that we have, we are quite distinct. So there are 26 PrEP programs in the U.S. 18 IRACDA programs in the U.S., and these are funded by the National Institutes of Health by grants from the National Institute for General Medical Sciences, or NIGMS is the part of NIH that funds these. There are 9 schools, including VCU, that have both PREP and IRACDA programs, only 9 across the U.S. The University of Alabama, Birmingham, Emory, Kansas, Lawrence, Tufts, New Mexico, Chapel Hill, UPenn, and Baylor College of Medicine. So you see that we're in some pretty good company there with these excellent programs. There are 4 other schools that have both PREP, IRACDA, and IMSD programs. That's University of Kansas, Lawrence, New Mexico, UNC Chapel Hill, and Baylor College of Medicine. And there's really only one school that has the blend of programs, one other school that has the blend of programs that we have at VCU, PREP, IRACDA, IMSD, and MARC. And MARC is a program that is targeted at universities where there is a large minority student population, and so that's where VCU fits in and is able to sort of carry out this blend of programs.
And another unique thing to point out is the other school that has the same blend of programs is the University of New Mexico, which is primarily serving Latinos. And in our position, we're primarily serving African Americans, which makes our group of programs still more unique.
So the blend of current trainees that are here at VCU at the moment, in the summer of 2012, we've had 60 undergraduate trainees. Some of these have been here at VCU and some have been placed elsewhere in the country. 8 MARC undergraduate students, 15 IMSD undergraduate students, 5 IMSD PhD students, 6 PREP fellows, and 5 IRACDA fellows. And so this is sort of the blend of people that we have right now. And I just sort of wanted to make a point that when you go from summer programs to undergraduate sort of more full-time programs to post-baccalaureate programs to graduate programs, all along the way we tend to kind of have a reduced number of underrepresented students participating, and so it's really important to have these programs in order to encourage that we don't have this brain drain that Dr. Barbara was talking about.
So another thing to point out is the strong institutional support we have for these programs, and that's in large part because they're aligned with the new VCU strategic plan, which is the Quest for Distinction. And on this slide, we've highlighted in some boxes some of the key parts of Quest for Distinction that are addressed by our program. If you look at the mission statement of Quest for Distinction, one of the key features of the mission program is to develop an engaged, learner-centered environment that fosters inquiry, discovery, and innovation. And that clearly is the cornerstone of the mentored research experience, which, as you'll see, is in turn a cornerstone of each and every one of our training programs. And then down in the other box on the left-hand side, you can see there's a statement about diversity, which says that diversity provides a climate of inclusion, a dedication to addressing disparities wherever they exist, and an opportunity to explore and create in an environment of trust. And as our programs address students who are typically underrepresented in the biomedical sciences, and especially in biomedical research, we clearly address that issue as well. In terms of core values, we address both the innovation value and the diversity value that are part of the Quest for Distinction. And so again, we have very strong institutional support, in large part because we are clearly aligned with the new strategic plan for the institution. So we started all of this back in 2007 with a series of summer programs. And those summer programs were primarily funded by the NIH. Some of them were funded by the National Heart and Lung Institute. Some were and that's the NHLBI. Another one was funded by the NIDDK. That's the National Institute of Digestive and Kidney Diseases. Some others were funded by more internal sources. We also had some that were funded by the P60 grant that came through. It's another NIH-funded grant that the Dean of the School of Medicine had. And I want to tell you a little bit about those programs and give you a sense of how we used the activities we developed in those programs to launch some of the new programs that are in place right now. By the way, this is a picture of the cohort of students who were on campus in the summer of 2010. So our summer programs have as their cornerstone a mentored research experience wherein we place the students with research mentors. We try to align the research mentors' interests with the students' interests, but our primary goal is just to get the students the opportunity to work in a research group, to get a sense of what discovery is all about, to learn a little bit about hypothesis development, hypothesis testing, problem solving, critical thinking skills, and ultimately we try to develop their communication skills and their quantitative skills to some extent. And so in addition to the mentored research experience, we also try to provide them with some enrichment activities that can help to flesh out some of the additional skills that you can't just pick up by working in a research lab. So for the last 6 years, we've run a course called the Scientific Research Process. I've given you a snapshot here of the course as it was offered in the summer of 2012. I won't go through it in detail, but you can probably see here that there are some writing components, so the students get the opportunity to develop their writing skills. The course director spends a lot of time with the students reading their abstracts. They write progress reports. Eventually they put together PowerPoint presentations and posters to present their work at the end, and she helps to go through those with them so that they can develop their writing skills. They also spend some time learning about statistics. They have the opportunity to learn how to use electronic resources like PubMed to look for relevant papers. They learn a little bit about how to look for scientific meetings to attend. And our goal is just to give them a general sense of the skill sets that you need in order to be a competitive biomedical researcher. At the end of the course, we have the opportunity for the students to practice for their oral presentations, and the capstone event of the summer is the oral and poster presentation symposium that happens in the first week of August. And so before the students actually get up on the stage and present their work to the whole community, they get the chance to interact with each other and practice and provide feedback. So that course is offered to students who are in the program for the first time. And typically the students who are coming into the summer programs, they're usually here on campus for one summer and then we don't see them again. But now that we have the additional programs, the MARC and the IMSD, a lot of our students are returning students. And so we've developed another course that basically takes off from the first one and provides more the opportunity to develop more advanced skills related to biomedical research. And that's the Navigating the Next Steps course. Navigating the Next Steps is really designed to get students thinking about going to graduate school. And ultimately our goal is to train these students to the point where they not only have the skill sets to go into PhD programs, but they actually want to go into PhD programs. So a lot of those skill sets come from interacting with their research mentors and with other folks in their research laboratories. But there's some really basic stuff that all the students need to know. Things like, how do I apply to graduate school? Where do I look for graduate funding? How do I put together a good application packet? What do I need to do to prepare for my interview, and what should I expect in the interview? And those are the kinds of things that Navigating the First Steps provides for them. So this is typically students who are in the second year and beyond in the programs. They're students who have clearly started to identify themselves as researchers, identify themselves as scientists, and we like to think that the students in this course are a little more differentiated than the ones in the first course. But again, they need this additional training so that they can eventually go on to graduate school. And then the third activity we have is a brown bag lunch. This is a Friday noon activity, and our goal here is to introduce our students to other researchers in the VCU community so that they're not just limited to the one research group they happen to be working with. What we try to do here is to have folks who have exciting research projects that we think the students will be interested in, but also have interesting career paths. And we ask our presenters to not only talk about their research, but also to tell us a little bit about how they got to where they are, what a typical day in the life is like, and their kind of ideas and thoughts on how a student should navigate the waters to get to the point where they too can be independent investigators. The brown bag lunch has been a very popular activity for our students, probably in part because it changes a little bit every year. The list you see here was the cohort of presenters that we had in 2010. Changes every year. Every year the students get to meet a different cohort of researchers, get a different sense of how they might progress in their careers. So I guess the obvious question is any of this working? Have we actually changed the face of the biomedical research workforce? And the answer to that is not yet, probably in part because our programs are relatively new, but also because there are some limitations in the summer programs. And I want to first tell you about our outcomes on the positive side, and then I want to tell you a little bit about some of the challenges which prompted us to look at developing some other programs. So our summer program students have been very active about going to meetings. there's a meeting called ABRCAMS. It's the annual biomedical research conference for minority students that our students attend every year. And our students have been very proactive about submitting their summer program abstracts for that meeting. They get to go to the meeting, they present their work in oral and sometimes poster formats, and probably even more importantly, they get to network there. They get to attend a graduate school fair where they can see representatives from graduate schools throughout the country, and there's some really fantastic motivational speakers who come in to talk to the students as well. On top of that, when you consider that ABRCAMS is a meeting for minority students, and the fact that there are something like 5,000 minority students who have done research who come to the meeting, it's incredibly inspirational for these kids to see students who look like them who are active in research. And so we're really excited that our summer students have been attending ABRCAMS, and probably even more exciting for me as a biomedical researcher is to see them starting to take the next step in terms of becoming independent, and that is that some of them have started to publish their summer research as well. We have one student we're very excited about who's now started a PhD program at Northwestern University. He starts in the fall, just moved out there. He's very excited about the opportunity. We're excited about having him out there. We have a student center here on campus called the Grant House, where we've got computers and couches and a little kitchenette for our students, and it's just a place for them to call home. That's especially important because most of our students are in undergraduate programs on the Monroe Park campus, but they're in laboratories down at the medical campus. Grant House is on the medical campus, so it gives them a home when they're down there. We're also very excited about some of the things our students have started to do to give back. Our students went to the ABRCAMS meeting in 2010. At that time, we only had 3 or 4 students, and they realized that students from other institutions were there with whole large cohorts, armies of students coming from a single institution. And they thought, you know, there's a lot of students at VCU, not just in our programs, but otherwise, who are doing undergraduate research, but they don't have any way to network. They don't have a way to form a cohort. And so our students came up with the idea of developing a student research organization, which I'm very proud to say they've not only started, but is flourishing, has a membership of something like 100 students. And again, the leaders of this organization, the developers of this organization, are students who came out of our research training programs. We also have a new position in the Department of Biology. It's the Undergraduate Research Coordinator. This is a position for a non-tenure track faculty member whose job is not just to teach, but to be there as a mentor, as an advisor for students who are interested in going into careers in research. And so we have a very dynamic individual in this position right now, Sarah Golding, who started to work with our students to help them to flesh out their academic schedules. She also helps them to think about career paths. She helps them with submitting their abstracts to ABRCAMS. And probably most importantly, she's kind of the face of the programs on the Monroe Park campus. As you heard, Joyce and I are over on the medical school campus, so we don't see the students as often. And this way we have a way of kind of keeping in contact with them indirectly, even when we can't be right there with them. By the way, we hope that this is a position that will be replicated in other departments. Biology is the first to have this sort of position. We hope that other departments will take on this idea as well, because again, it's aligned with the idea of the quest for distinction, that goal of developing innovation and of students participating in scholarly research. Kind of along those lines, if undergraduates are going to be doing research, they also have to get training in the responsible conduct of research, or RCR. The first formal course offering for that is Biology 301. This is a course that was developed in part by Sarah Golding and in part to serve the students in our programs. And we think this is very important because this, together with the development of Sarah's position, indicates that our programs are impacting our institution beyond just the small handful of students that we can support, but they're actually starting to have impacts that will improve the research or improve the educational experience for VCU undergraduates in general. And then finally, in 2012, just this past May, we had the first offering of what we call Laboratory Skills Boot Camp. This was a week in late May when we taught students basic techniques in the laboratory: how to pipette, how to use a pH meter, how to use a spectrophotometer, how to culture cells. And our goal there was, well, number one, that the students would be more valuable to their research mentors if they already had these skills when they got in the laboratories. But probably more importantly, by practicing these skills before going to their research laboratories, they develop a measure of confidence. And so our hope was that they would feel more productive, they would feel like they were contributing from the beginning, and that in turn would increase their confidence and they would have a better summer research experience. So these are all positives. They're outcomes that, some of which we couldn't have imagined when we first started the programs. And again, they impact both our students and in specific and students at VCU in general. But we still have a number of challenges, and some of these challenges are not unique to summer programs. Placement is an issue because we have to find good research mentors. The best mentor is not necessarily the person who has the largest lab or the largest amount of money. Recruitment is an issue, especially when we're looking for African American males and Native Americans. These are issues that we're trying to address, and honestly, a lot of institutions have been struggling with these issues for the last 35 years. I don't know that there are any easy solutions to them. Monitoring is an issue. There's clearly a need to follow these students and make sure that they're doing well, not just in their research laboratories, but also in academics. Now that we have Sarah Golding on the Monroe Park campus, I think this starts to get a little bit easier for us. Program evaluation has always been an issue for these kinds of research training programs. We're not the only ones to face this. There's clearly a need to figure out whether what we're doing is working. And tied to that is the concept of tracking alumni, which is something that, again, we are not the only ones having problems doing. There's clearly a need to develop more effective mechanisms for tracking alumni so that we can figure out whether our programs are making an impact. And then finally, when it comes to these summer programs, one thing we found was that it was very difficult to keep students engaged after the summer research experience. Essentially, what I thought was that the students were viewing this as what they did on their summer vacation, and then once the summer was done, they went back to their real lives and kind of left the research experience behind. And this prompted us to consider the possibility that we might have a stronger impact if we were to provide research training support throughout the academic year for our students. And so that's why we moved away from the programs that are up here at the top of this slide, the HERO and the Step Up programs, which are strictly summer research programs, and we developed the ones down here at the bottom. Those are the MARC, IMSD, PREP, and IRACDA programs, and they're the programs that Joyce and I want to spend some time describing for you in a little bit of detail right now. So one thing I'll point out before I start talking about a few of the programs is that all of these programs are targeting individuals who are typically underrepresented in the biomedical sciences, and in particular in research. That includes racial and ethnic minority students, disadvantaged students, and also disabled students. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about the IMSD undergraduate program. IMSD is the initiative for maximizing student diversity. We target individuals who are coming out of their freshman year of college, and what we're looking for primarily are students who show some promise but also show some evidence that they're at risk. They might be coming from households where they don't have college-educated parents. They might be coming from households that are disadvantaged. It may be that the students are a little bit immature and aren't quite ready to take on the responsibility of being a successful college student. And our goal is to engage with them early on, get them excited about research with the hope that once they get excited about the research, that will prompt them to become more mature, to become more focused, and hopefully to not only continue with research, but continue with their majors in the STEM disciplines. So to do this, we put the students into mentored research experiences. Those start in the summer after the freshman year, and we can support them all the way through the senior year. In fact, we encourage the students to stay with their research mentors for as long as they can, with the hope that the students will not only be productive in the laboratory, but that productivity will be reflected in papers and presentations. We provide a stipend for our students. We give them the opportunity to take a course that prepares them for the Graduate Record Examination, or GRE. We provide some enhanced advising for them. One thing we've learned, especially for the biology majors, there's something like 2,000 of them, is that it's very hard for them to get the focused advising that they need so they can select appropriate courses. And so now, together with Sarah Golding, the undergraduate research coordinator, we've been able to sit down with the students, go through their transcripts and help them to make some more educated decisions about the courses they're making. We have a number of opportunities to help our students develop their oral and written communication skills. Right now, those focus primarily on the ABRCAMS meeting and developing their presentations for ABRCAMS. We also provide the students with some career development advising. Sometimes that's advising them to go for the top, go for the gold, and aim for MD, PhD programs at top-notch institutions. And quite frankly, we've had some students where we've had to have the tough talk and say, you know, you've been trying this for a while, but I don't think this is the right path for you. Either way, we hope that we can intercede early enough that students can make the right career decisions for themselves and get on the right path. So does VCU-IMSD work? We think it's starting to work. The program is relatively young. We're in our 4th year. A number of our IMSD scholars have been appointed to MARC, which, as I'll tell you in a few minutes, is an honors research program. We have just one scholar so far who's graduated. Again, we're a young program. She's in the process of applying to PREP programs, and we hope to see her in a PhD program at some point in the near future. Several of our students have gotten travel awards to present at undergraduate research symposia on the national level, and one example of that is the one that's held at the ASBMB meeting. Again, that student research organization was developed by IMSD students and former IMSD students. And probably most importantly, when we look at these students not in the aggregate but on the individual level, we realize that we start to build their confidence. And by pumping up their confidence, we think we're also underscoring their interest in continuing with their STEM degrees and ultimately potentially becoming independent researchers. And again, our goal ultimately is to increase the pipeline and sustain the biomedical research workforce. So the other undergraduate program we've got is the VCU-MARC program. That's the Minority Access to Research Careers program. This is an honors level program for students who are in their junior and senior years of college. And so we're looking for students who are GPA 3.5 or better, who are clearly academically talented, but probably only thinking about medical school, to be quite honest. Our goal is to give them a mentored research experience, introduce them to researchers, give them a sense to develop their identity as biomedical researchers in hopes that they will at least consider the PhD, perhaps the MD PhD, but bottom line that they'll consider going into research as a career. So the MARC program also provides a stipend. Because it's an honors program, in addition to the stipend, it also provides partial tuition remission. The students again get the opportunity to take the GRE prep course. We have the enhanced advising where we go through their academic records. We help them to select the right courses. They have the opportunities to develop writing and oral communication skills, the career development, and again, we encourage them to go to ABRCAMS and present their work there. Now, in terms of outcomes, our MARC students are starting to be wildly successful, and we're very, very excited about this. Numerous of our MARC students have gotten travel awards to national meetings, and I've just listed a couple of the meetings here on the slide. Our MARC students are also starting to publish. Several of our students have co-authored publications, which are going to look fantastic when they apply for graduate school, so, especially for MD, PhD programs. Again, our MARC students were the folks who formed the student research organization, and the first president of that organization was a student called Nissan Hubbard, who is now the one who's at the Northwestern PhD program. Again, if you look at this on the individual student level, the most important thing is that our students are developing the confidence and the identity that we hope will stamp them as biomedical researchers in the future. So in addition to the undergraduate component, IMSD also has a PhD component. We provide support for underrepresented PhD students in the first 2 years of PhD training. And those students can be enrolled in any PhD program in VCU. In fact, they have to be admitted to a VCU PhD program before we can consider them for IMSD support. However, once we enroll them in IMSD, they get a stipend, they get full tuition remission, and we provide them with health insurance. So they basically get compensation at the same level as other PhD students, and they're treated just like all the other PhD students, with the exception that, again, they have enhanced advising. One of the things that prompted us to develop the IMSD PhD program was what we were looking at underrepresented students and their success rate in PhD programs, especially in the VCU School of Medicine. And what we came to realize was, although these students were coming in with credentials that were pretty comparable to their majority peers, the fact is that they weren't being successful. They weren't progressing to their candidacy exams at the same rate as their peers were. They weren't publishing like their peers were. They weren't graduating at the same rates as their peers, and they weren't going on to competitive postdocs. So our goal with the IMSD PhD program is basically to slow down the clock a little bit, to give these students a chance to catch up, to develop the academic skills they need, develop the theoretical background, the critical thinking, the problem-solving skills, and then we kind of let them loose and let them show how good they are. And so by providing them with the enhanced advising, giving them the opportunity to take a reduced course load in the first couple of years, we hope we can shore up their confidence, develop their study habit and test-taking skills to the point where they can be as competitive as their peers. In addition to that, we also help our students with the development of written and oral communication skills. And just like I talked about in the undergraduates, we have some career advising and the opportunity to travel to professional meetings. So does IMSD PhD work? Again, we're starting to see that it works. None of our students have graduated yet. We are a young program, but most of them have stayed in PhD programs. Those who've stayed in the PhD programs have completed their candidacy exams. One of them has moved on, or is thinking about moving on to a faculty position at some point, and he's recently been appointed to a National Academy for the Development of Future Faculty. We're very excited about that. Again, the most important thing is that we're building the confidence of our students. So students who were frightened, quite frankly, of taking PhD level courses have developed a measure of confidence. That's starting to be reflected in better grades. It's starting to be reflected in progression to the candidacy exams at a somewhat faster rate. And we hope that ultimately, when these students graduate, they'll be going out to get postdocs that are just as competitive as those of their peers.
Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other programs that we have for more advanced students, including the VCU-PREP program, which is for post-baccalaureate students. And this is a program where we bring recent college graduates to VCU for a one-year mentored research experience. So most of their time is spent in the laboratory doing a research project with a hand-picked mentor that's going to be someone who's going to encourage them and stimulate their interest in science. The students in this program can be in a variety of different types of science. They can be in psychology, they can be in public health. Most of them have been in the basic sciences like biochemistry, genetics, molecular biology, that kind of thing. So after this one-year experience, we hope that they will, and these are students who are aspiring to get into PhD programs. This is a pretty competitive program to get into. We typically have about 8 applicants for every slot that we have in the program, and we take 6 students per year. The program provides the students with a full stipend at the level of a PhD student and health insurance, and we give them help and preparation classes to help them with taking the graduate record exam, and a lot of hands-on advising and help with writing their essays for graduate school applications, choosing the schools that they will apply to, and actually doing interviews at the schools. So we find that doing mock interviews before they actually go out and do their actual interviews is very, very useful. So we have a structure where the students have a regular meeting with me. I'm the program director for this program. And they also interact every week or two with their compatriots in the PREP program. And I think this helps them kind of as they're going through the steps of applying to graduate school to have other people going through it with them and seeing how they're approaching things. In the program, the students start out by writing a research proposal. It's August now, and the program started July 1st, so the students are writing their research proposals right now. And then they do get a lot of experience in addition to writing with oral communication skills, both by presenting their work here at VCU and also at meetings around the country. They typically attend the ABRCAMS meeting, which has been very useful, as Suzanne said, because there are a lot of universities represented there, where the students can sort of meet someone from the university, decide whether they want to apply there, ask some questions, and that kind of thing. We give them a lot of career development advising, and I think that helps a lot. So just an anecdotal kind of measure, then I think the next slide is outcomes, but an anecdotal measure of the outcomes is that we had a student last year who applied to 7 PhD programs prior to entering PREP, and she didn't get into any of them. And then she applied to 7 while she was in PREP, and she got into all of them. And we obviously encourage the students to apply to a blend of different programs, ones they're likely to get into and some other ones that are, you know, aspiring to maybe a high quality program. And so I think that the reason why she got into those programs the second year as opposed to the first year, you know, we didn't change anything about her undergraduate grades or courses or anything like that. I think what we did was we built confidence and gave her some research experience that she could really talk about in her interviews. And so since she was confident talking about research, that's what they were looking for in the interviews, and that's why she got into those programs. But we've had a good record of having our prep students get into PhD programs at excellent schools. I've named a few here: Cornell, Berkeley, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which has a very nice program for underrepresented students, Texas A&M, and of course VCU. And part of our goal in attracting all of these excellent prep students from across the country here to VCU is that we do usually get a couple of them to stay here at VCU for graduate programs, and that increases diversity here, which we've mentioned a little bit about. Our undergraduate population is quite diverse, but our graduate population is just sort of averagely diverse compared to other institutions, and we'd like to obviously you know, make this a place where underrepresented students come. So a lot of the students in the PrEP program have co-authored publications. One or two of them has actually for a first author publication after their time in PrEP. It's only a year. That can be difficult, but many of them have had co-authored publications. I think just something that Suzanne said reminded me that I should mention that of the 17 students who have been in the PrEP program, most have gone on to PhD programs. There are a couple here and there who aspire to go on to MD PhD programs. And there were a couple who learned that research wasn't the thing for them through this program. And although that was the case, they actually figured out what they wanted to do and went on to other degrees, but not necessarily in math and science. So I think I viewed those as success stories as well, because I think we brought someone to a place where they could make those decisions. So, kind of the last program that we wanted to talk about is IRACDA, and this is a pretty unique program. It's a program for postdoctoral fellows, and although you would think that this would be something that everyone would want to do as a postdoctoral fellow if they are aspiring to get into a faculty position. You would think that you know, a lot of places would have the opportunity for them to learn both how to do research and how to teach at the same time within their postdoctoral experience. But frankly, this is not really the case at most places, and so getting this IRACDA grant from NIH gave us the opportunity to actually do this and to train postdocs who want to do research and teach. Now, the teaching component is we work with 3 partner institutions for this teaching component: Virginia Union University, Virginia State University, and Elizabeth City State University. So these are all fairly local or regional institutions that are minority-serving institutions. And so not only are our postdocs getting teaching experience, they are actually benefiting from a mentor at one of these local schools who is an expert in teaching. And so and many of these IRACDA fellows aspire to teach at a liberal arts or a smaller college, not a medical school. And so this gives them, you know, hands-on training in the kind of teaching that they actually want to do in the future. in addition to getting this teaching training, hands-on training, before that they do courses at VCU. They learn how to teach and they learn what it's like to be a faculty member. There's a program here called Preparing Future Faculty, and those courses are of benefit to these students. They particularly enjoy a course that focuses on technology and teaching. So the experience is mainly training in research in a lab with an NIH-funded VCU faculty, but they do spend 25% of their time doing these teaching activities, which actually make them quite marketable as faculty members. And so I guess probably on the next slide we have some outcomes of the program. This is again, a fairly new program. Many of these programs that we've talked about today, they started in 2010. So here we are in 2012. So we've just been doing this for a couple of years. However, we have 3 former IRACDA fellows who are faculty at institutions across the country. One at Howard University School of Medicine, one at William Woods University, which is in Missouri, and one at Norfolk State University here in Virginia. So this is, our first class of students has already taken off, and all 3 of them got these positions. So, and we've also had an exchange of students from the partner institutions who've come to VCU to work in research labs, often under the mentorship of the IRACDA fellows. So this is a win-win for both institutions, and this program is attracting excellent, diverse postdocs to VCU who might not have come here, but do come here because of this opportunity to get the training in teaching as well as research. So the challenges around the IRACDA program are similar. The first one, placement, it can be difficult in the current economic times to find a person at VCU who has research funding enough to take a postdoc, who's interested in a very specific area of research at that stage of their career. They're pretty focused, and so that can be somewhat challenging. Although I think we've done pretty well with that. The postdocs in the IRACDA program do not have to be in underrepresented groups, although we aim to have the fellows from underrepresented groups here. So again, we do have that the pool of African American males and Native Americans and et cetera is less, and so it's harder to recruit. Also, I want another thing about recruitment for IRACDA is that I think that this program is sort of underappreciated and not as well known across the country as it should be. And so I think that hopefully some of you hearing about this today will know someone who would benefit from this program, and we'll put them in touch with us. So, and again, program evaluation and tracking alumni, just like the other programs, this is somewhat of a challenge. Although I think we have been developing this over the years, and I think we're getting better at all of these things. So this is a group of students. So Suzanne mentioned the first group who went to the ABRCAMS meeting was just a few students from VCU. This is the group that we took in 2011. There were 25 students or so. And so we made quite a splash there in St. Louis when we arrived with all of these students. And this is a picture in the airport at about 5 a.m. Before we left for the conference. And this is, if you're not familiar with it, this is the logo or the slogan for VCU, Our Time Right Now.
So with that, we just want to take a few minutes to acknowledge all the folks who contribute to this. Joyce and I have the pleasure of presenting these programs to you today, but we work with an army of people who work very, very hard to not only develop these programs, but to implement them and ultimately to try and figure out if they're working well for the students. And so in terms of the program staff, in the upper left-hand corner, Joyce is the director of the PREP program and co-director of the IRACDA program. John Ryan in the Department of Biology is the director of the MARC program and co-director of IMSD. Paul Fisher, the chair of Human and Molecular Genetics, is the director of the IRACDA program. I'm the director of the IMSD program and co-director of the MARC and IRACDA programs. I was also director of Step Up, that was one of the summer research programs. Sarah Golding is the undergraduate research coordinator, and she's a coordinator of both IMSD and MARC. Rakesh Kukrecha in the Department of Internal Medicine is the director of the HERO program. Wally Smith in the Department of Internal Medicine is the co-director of the HERO program. And Jerry Strauss, the dean of the School of Medicine, is the director of the P60 program, which has provided some summer research opportunities in the past.
So we also wanted to thank the faculty and staff in the Center on Health Disparities. So this group of people is our go-to people for getting anything administrative done and applying for grants and administering grants. And they've been extremely helpful. Dr. Marcy Wright and Dr. P.J. Coney are in faculty who are in the center, but we've also received lots of help from Barbara McLean, Aisha Jenkins, and Alexia Cleveland, and various others who have, from the past, who've been working for the center.
We've also received a lot of institutional support, and there are a number of VCU administrators who've been instrumental in getting these programs going and keeping them going. Chief among those are Jan Chelbowski, who's the Associate Dean for Graduate Education in the VCU School of Medicine, who's gotten all kinds of doors opened for us that we never thought would be opened. Lou DeFelice has a leadership role in the School of Medicine in graduate education and training, and he's helped us to think more broadly about our programs, having been involved in them at another institution in the past. Ann Nichols-Casebold and Herb Hill are in the VP for Research office. They're responsible for the UROP program, the Undergraduate Research Opportunities program, and they've helped us to integrate our programs into UROP. They've also taken some things we've developed in our programs and used them for UROP, so it's been a terrific collaboration with them. Frank Macrina is the VP for Research. He's played an instrumental role, especially in the RCR training piece, which is essential for all of our programs, but also in terms of being a cheerleader for us when we've needed additional institutional resources. And Jerry Strauss, the Dean of the School of Medicine, has been our well, basically our wallet. Whenever we've run out of money, we go to Uncle Jerry, and he's been great about helping us to fund some of the activities that we never planned for in the grants, but we've needed to
I
shore
think
up our programs.
that was one thing we learned from these grants, is that you never think of all the things you're going to need when you're writing the grant proposal.
So the Step Up program is an undergraduate summer program that we ran from 2007 to, we've just finished that here in 2012. And in the bottom right-hand corner, this is just a list of the wonderful folks who contributed to that program. And they were especially important because that was a national program. We were placing students all around the country, and we needed a large cohort of folks to help us make that happen. But I think the center box is probably among the most important on this slide. We could not do any of this without dedicated faculty research mentors, folks who are not just interested in having pairs of hands in their labs, but in developing the next generation of biomedical researchers, and we thank them very much. Clearly the dollars have to come from somewhere. In addition to the institutional resources, NIH has been very, very generous to us, and I would argue they've given us a huge vote of confidence by giving us the money to run these four programs. And finally, clearly without the talented students and trainees, none of this would happen. We have a great cohort of students here at VCU, a very diverse cohort of students here at VCU. All they need are opportunities, and that's something that I've learned over the last few years. You know, you can take a kid who looks pretty green and maybe doesn't shine up very much, but you polish up those diamonds in the rough and they could be pretty darn good, and that's something else we've learned in the last few years.
And that's what's really rewarding for us, I think, in being involved in these programs.
So thank you, and please contact us if you have questions.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.